Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Lakeisha Banking Foundation and the Development Alternatives Group, I welcome you all to the Jobs We Want event. We're extremely delighted to have all of you with us today, and we really hope that we're able to co-create solutions for unleashing entrepreneurship that'll create more jobs. We will be live streaming and live tweeting the entire day today through our Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube channels. And we'd really encourage you all to please share your thoughts and insights through these platforms. We're also live streaming through the Go News channel today. And without much ado now, I'd like to request Mr. George Verghese, our President, Development Alternatives Group, to give the welcome address.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can we hear something? It's a seminar. Your Royal Highness Princess Christina of Spain and Director International of the Lakeisha Banking Foundation. As Sunanda told you, we've had a great opportunity of working with them for a little while. Dr. Arun Panda, Secretary, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, and I'm purposely spreading the name out so that we know what we are focusing on today. Martha, where are you? Also colleagues, fellow colleagues in the journey on jobs and livelihoods, and especially our entrepreneurs from Eastern Uttar Pradesh and Bundelkhand. It gives me pleasure to welcome you to this event. This is an event we have been waiting for quite some time. For the simple reason, I have to organize this. Many of us are aware that India is confronted with a complex problem. On one hand, we have heard of the demographic dividend, in which we have a young population that, if carefully steered and enabled, can help us build a robust nation. On the other hand, the same young people in this country, about 30,000 of them, need jobs every day, and we are only able to provide less than half of it. So is this an opportunity or is this a problem? This complex issue has to be faced. In the context, if we want to reap the harvest of the demographic dividend, estimates indicate that approximately 15 million jobs are required annually over the next 15 years. This is huge just in India. And if you extrapolate that into the rest of the world, you can see what is confronting the world. Experiences across the globe have shown that a bulk of this is going to come from micro, small, medium enterprises, to the extent in certain countries it's over 90%. Ours it's a little over 75%, 70-75%. So the bulk is going. Now you can see, thank you, Dr. Panda, for coming, the importance of this ministry and the presence of the Secretary with us. The deliberations we are going to do is, what is the jobs we want? In our own little way, Development Alternatives over the last 30 years, we've been doing various kinds of innovations in the area of green jobs, if we may like to put it that way. The construction industry, water, sanitation, agriculture, rural energy, all kinds of services, primarily in the rural area. I wouldn't say we've put much in terms of numbers. Yeah, we have 50, 60,000 jobs created. But I think the kind of innovations that we have put out there in the market, people have taken from us and replicated. And some conservative estimates indicate that just a small organization like us has been able to influence about 6 million people in just these areas of jobs. So, yes, you can be small and yet significant. We've had the opportunity over the last couple of years. Dr. Khosla, our chairman, has been working with the Lakeisha banking group over the last 6-7 years, first in the form of being part of their board and advising them on how do you do environmental and social kind of work across the world. More recently, the two institutions have come together looking at something called Work4Progress. What we recognize in this is 21st century problems cannot be handled by 20th century tools. We need a new way of looking at it, new methods, new tools, new techniques. We, together with the Lakeisha Foundation, believe that innovation is the name of the game, and the innovation has to be in the context, the socio-cultural context in each of the countries. We are trying. And the entrepreneurs which you see over the last 1 year, we've been working with them, trying steps at this, babies. We're taking baby steps. The second most important thing that we are looking at from this Work4Progress glass, we are very sure that none of us single institutions, I told you the small and significant is possible, but for the scale of the problem that's in India and for the scale of the problem that is global, it requires partnerships. And that's the reason why every single person of you sitting in this room is important. My colleagues have put in a lot of effort to identify who you are, pick you out, because we believe, number one, in today's deliberations, you have a lot to contribute. And even more than that, beyond the deliberations today, the partnership that we create and the links that we are going to create with government is going to help us address this complex and humongous challenge of giving opportunities for work to our younger populations. With this, once again, I would like to welcome each one of you to this event. And with this, I would like to invite Dr. Khosla to invite Princess Christina and some of our other colleagues to come and light the lamp. Dr. Panda, will you join Martha? And the young entrepreneur Vimla.
Thank you for kickstarting this event today. And now we'd like to begin with our inaugural session, for which I'd like to invite upon stage Ms. Marta Solsona, the Program Officer for the Lakeisha Banking Foundation, Dr. Arun Panda, Secretary, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, and Mr. Shashtant Patara, Senior Vice President, Development Alternatives Group. Marta, can I request you to please start?
Hello. Good morning to everybody. Dr. Kosla, Dr. Panda, Pat. It's a great pleasure to be here today in relation to the launch in India of the program Work4Progress. And I would like first to sincerely thank our colleagues from Development Alternatives for devoting so much time and efforts to the preparation of this event. Let me start by giving you a brief update about Lakeisha Banking Foundation by showing you a short video about our origins. Thank you.
In the Barcelona of 1902, a general strike leaves 13 workers dead and hundreds injured, stirring a wave of solidarity with the victims. A sector of the most forward-thinking middle classes decides to collect funds to help the injured and, if possible, set up a savings bank to provide old-age pensions for workers. This is the origin of an organization that sets out to generate not only economic but also social value and will develop in accordance with the needs of different times. The Caixa de Pensiones para la Vejez y de Ahorros is established in 1904 and with it old age pensions for workers. The organization's profits are used for social initiatives like the homages to the elderly, festive events in honor of the elderly where they are given pensions for life. But Francesc Moragas, its head, wants to go further and decides to integrate charity institutions into the organization. A foundation is set up to run them, the Obra Social, and over the next 20 years this prioritizes health, joining the struggle against tuberculosis, equality, incorporating the Institute for Working Women, and culture with the building of libraries. Projects aimed at children are also undertaken with the incorporation of schools for blind and also speech and hearing impaired children. After the Spanish Civil War, the development of the foundation is curtailed, though initiatives like prosthetic limbs for war wounded help victims of the conflict. But in 1955, the trend changes with an ambitious project, affordable social housing, which builds up an estate of 25,000 flats. With the arrival of democracy, the foundation launches new initiatives. The esplais are opened, recreational centres for the elderly, and cultural venues are set up in the city. In the 80s and 90s, the organisation's management structure is overhauled. Thus, backing is given to popular science with the opening of the Science Museum, and education with a prestigious scholarship programme. This period is rounded off with the creation of programs to help the most disadvantaged groups. Today, with a budget in excess of 500 million euros, it stands as one of the most important foundations in the world, backing social programs including combating child poverty, fostering employment, access to decent housing, active aging for the elderly, encouraging volunteering in society, psychological and social support at the end of people's lives, backing research, awarding grants for academic excellence, economic and social development for the most vulnerable countries, reinforcing education, and promoting culture with the opening of art centres and spreading knowledge throughout the country. The Lakeisha Banking Foundation will continue its efforts in the future to build a fairer society and offer opportunities to those who need them most. Lakeisha Banking Foundation. Changing the present, building the future.
Okay. Thank you. As you have seen on the video, for more than 110 years, Lakeisha Banking Foundation has been strongly committed to the progress of people and building a better society for everyone. The foundation focuses on three main lines of action. On the one hand, we work towards a future of inclusion and progress through our social programs. They take 60% of our annual budget, and they are focused on child poverty, employment, housing, elderly people, and people with advanced diseases, among others. We drive research, talent, and innovation through our research program, collaborating with science centers and training future researchers and transferring also the results of science to society. And finally, we also want to make knowledge and culture available to all segments of society through our cultural and educational programs. As you are probably aware, most of our activities take place in Spain, but since 1997, we also run international programs representing around 5% of our total budget. Our main strategic objective internationally is to provide opportunities and fight against inequalities in countries in South America, in Asia and Africa, always aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We focus on four main lines of actions: global health, especially working on the fight against malaria and pneumonia, which are considered as the first causes of death of children under 5. Also education, giving access to primary education through new technologies. Emergencies and humanitarian action, improving the living conditions of the refugees, and especially of children who suffer from malnutrition. And finally, job creation, promoting employment for vulnerable women and young people. Included within our key lines of action is the collaboration with the leading international organizations. For this reason, we foster quality partnerships and alliances in order to unite our efforts and make progress in combating shared challenges. And now let's focus our attention on the program Work4Progress. Its primary objective is to promote innovative solutions for employment. We want to do that by supporting networks of organizations that work in the same territory with shared methodologies. This is what we call platforms of innovation and socio-economic change. The program targets women and young people because they are among the most vulnerable. The International Labour Organization states that 2 out of every 5 young people in the world are currently unemployed, and this problem is even more serious for women who are 27% less likely to find a job than men are. The program Work4Progress focuses in 3 of the countries where La Caixa Banking Foundation has been working the most over the last times: Mozambique, Peru, and India. Regarding India, since 2001, we have collaborated with more than 25 international and also Indian organizations in programs of socio-economic development, benefiting almost 370,000 people from vulnerable communities. With Development Alternative itself, we had a previous and successful collaboration through a program that promoted an integrated and sustainable development of rural villages in the region of Bundelkhand, benefiting 600 poor households. And now we decided to take a step forward working with development alternative in order to build a network of public and private organizations that work together in 2 geographical regions, near Jhansi and Varanasi. And we want to do that through what we think is a new methodology, a new approach, which is new for us also. We want to do that by listening the community's needs and by establishing a diagnosis of the challenges and the potential opportunities regarding employment. Also, co-creating initiatives that meet the community's demands, and implementing prototypes of job creation initiatives to test their feasibility. Later on, we would like to accelerate the initiatives that show the most convincing evidence regarding their impact. A system of ongoing evaluation and monitoring of the platforms are key elements that will allow modifications to be made in real time. As ultimate goal, we want to build up capacity of innovation in processes, products, and services. We also want to develop a new sense of collaboration among the institutions involved in order to ensure sustainability and impact. I would like to finish my intervention by going back to our origins and showing you a picture of the Catalan artist Joan Miró, who inspired 36 years ago the logo of La Caixa Foundation, a blue star. A blue star that today goes together with the green star of development alternatives in what we believe it will be a long and successful story of collaboration and mutual learning. Thank you very much.
Can I request Mr. Patara to please share his thoughts? You may need the slide changer.
Thank you, Sunanda. Thank you so much, Marta, for that wonderful and informative presentation on the Lakeisha Banking Foundation's work. Thank you so much, Dr. Panda, for being with us here today. As our President George Varghese underlined in the morning, in his welcoming remarks, the focus of virtually everything that we're doing is on micro, small, and medium enterprises, all the more so at the micro enterprise end. In fact, I'd venture to say smaller than micro if there is such a category, because as we've worked across the states of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, parts of Rajasthan, around the National Capital Region, we found that that is where the challenges lie, and that's also where the biggest numbers are in terms of people who could potentially become entrepreneurs. And individually in small ways, but collectively in a massive way, create jobs in the millions. It might be just 2 or 3 people being employed in that particular enterprise, but when you put the numbers together, it becomes quite a big amount. And we hope to work with the ministry much more closely in the future. Thank you, Princess Christina, once again for being with us here today. Invitees, friends, colleagues, we value your presence here and look forward to an exciting day. I won't take more than 8 or 9 minutes to basically share with you the kind of work that we have been doing in the Work4Progress program in India. The challenge needs no repetition. I think it's well known that not only are there millions of people in India who are on the threshold of entrepreneurship and could not only dramatically change their own lives, but also change the lives of people around them. The question, therefore, if you were to define the challenge in more precise terms, is how do we tap this vast reservoir of talent that we have to spur the story of growth? Without wanting to comment on the growth trajectory that the Indian economy has taken in the last decade, or more recently in the last 3 or 4 years, I think we do need to recognize that that story of growth is only partial, and on current evidence, it's affecting only a few. And there are many more people, numbering in millions, that have to become part of the growth story in this country. And that's where we feel that micro-entrepreneurship will have a huge role to play. And that is our belief. How do we engineer this transition? Because whether you're in the remotest village of Bundelkhand or you're in towns such as Bhadoi and Mirzapur, close to Varanasi, which is where the focus of these activities have taken place, or whether you just cross the river Yamuna and go into Greater Noida, we've seen example after example in our work of how people can become change makers. And if we were given a choice to place our bets and say where would we like to invest, the organization has made a clear choice in that direction. That we'd like to invest our efforts, all of the resources that we can command, in working with other partners to support micro-entrepreneurship. Because it's our belief that transformation and transformation at scale can happen if that happens. What I've said so far is about as much as we know. We know what the challenge is like. Most of you in this room at least would share our belief in the power of micro-enterprise. There is, however, a lot that we do not know. And therefore, a large amount of time and effort in this project is being spent in the Work4Progress program, is being spent on understanding entrepreneurship. What are the dynamics that affect entrepreneurship at work? How do people relate to each other? How does an entrepreneur relate to his parents when they're talking about the subject of entrepreneurship within the home? Will it translate into 20,000 rupees being invested in a small business, or will there be obstacles? How do young men and women relate to their friends? Who do they see as role models within the communities that they work? People who can motivate them into taking that step, into taking some amount of risk. Entrepreneurship, as you would all know, is virtually by definition a matter of taking risk in some small measure. Support is available. There are schemes. There is some amount of credit that is flowing into the rural economy, into the small town economy. But still, the entrepreneur does need to take some risks, and not only in their own minds, but within society, there are several factors that can affect that ability. So we've invested over the last 6 months a significant amount of time in doing precisely that. As Marta just described, the Work4Progress program globally and in India follows a methodology which is based on 4 steps. The first being the step of dialogue, and it is intensive dialogue of the kind that I was referring to earlier that we've undertaken. As the dialogue progresses, we drift into the phase of co-creation. Nothing, and I say this with some amount of emphasis, nothing is predetermined in the program. We do not have packaged services, right, or solutions that go out to entrepreneurs and with the expectation that they would avail of those services and set up a small business. Nothing is predetermined, virtually everything is on the table, and it's on the basis of dialogue that we go into co-creating solutions. Not just locally with the stakeholders that we're involved with, but with an increasing number of partners who bring different kinds of competence and experience to the table. Prototyping is all about rolling it out, validating whether the solutions work or not, and we've begun some amount of that. And learning should actually not be there at the end, because another very, very strong commitment that the program has made is to learning as you're doing, or introducing very rapid learning, applying cycles. So in that sense, the graphic is a bit of a misrepresentation. We should actually have had learning cutting across all 3. And we've made investments in that, in real-time monitoring, in real-time learning that comes from that, and a subject which is dear to several of our hearts and we believe would be of great value to people in the development community and government as well, which is the field of developmental evaluation. You'll hear during the course of the afternoon in breakout sessions a little bit more about that. A few examples, probably not represented with large enough pictures or captions here, of the kind of initiatives that we've been taking to engage in intensive dialogue. To just give you one example of the kind of solutions that may emerge if such a process is followed. In Bundelkhand, when we talked to 300 people across a fairly deep survey about factors in their minds, and this was a mix of existing and potential entrepreneurs, of factors in their minds that would affect their view of entrepreneurship and their ability to become entrepreneurs, a startling discovery was made that 91% of those 300 people actually look for local role models. Now, this might seem obvious, but to us at least it was not, because we thought the role models are the Mukesh Ambanis of the world or the Amitabh Bachchans, the Virat Kohlis, in the minds of people, young men and women in places like Bundelkhand. They were not. It was not business leaders, celebrities, politicians, etc. It was the person in that village or town who had changed their lives, who were doing both economically and socially much better off than they were 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. 91% of our respondents said that those are the role models. We thought about what to do with this, went into the co-creation phase, and because in Bundelkhand we also run a community radio station, have access to media that is community-based, community-driven, we conceived of a program called Kaun Banega Business Leader. Who wants to be a business leader, modeled roughly along the lines of Who Wants to be a Millionaire or Kaun Banega Crorepati, which is actually, it played out as a reality show in which potential entrepreneurs could propose business ideas, and through a competition, they would get filtered out, and some of them would be winners in that competition. The whole idea being to build upon that finding of how important local role models are. Again, I won't run you through the numbers, but significant findings. This is something that we'll be going through in much greater detail during the afternoon. It's been documented. It will be available in the evening as documentation to everyone in this room. Changemakers. Again, the 3 stories highlighted here are the ones that stood out in terms of their innovativeness and the fact that the entrepreneurs involved had a vision beyond their own business. All 3 of them recognized that they can play the role of a change maker within their communities and have very quickly progressed into not just improving their own lives in economic, social terms, but have also started involving other people in the work that they're doing. We should not, and this is probably the best time to point out, the emphasis that we also lay in terms of the enterprise solutions being environmentally sound, or at least environmentally benign. It's the topic of probably another workshop such as this, but all of you are well aware of how constrained resources have become, and in many cases we face a crisis. We encourage in most of the enterprise solutions that we promote that a large measure of resource efficiency is brought in, the units are not polluting, etc. Moving forward, in terms of, again, where the investments will be made during the course of this year, we are basically looking at creating communities of change, change makers, developing what could probably in the coming year be called a micro movement of people working together in the 2 geographies of Bundelkhand and Eastern Uttar Pradesh, the districts of Sant Ravidas Nagar and Bhadoi, with the hope that enough evidence will be created so that going forward, this can actually become a movement on a much larger scale with many more partners, etc. And this is where I'd like to reiterate the emphasis that George Verghese was placing in his opening remarks on innovation and partnership. because these are the two elements of our work that we will continue to prioritize. We recognize that a massive amount of implementation is already taking place through the efforts of the government, through agencies that implement schemes of various kinds, through civil society organizations, through business groups, etc. And our intention is not to try to replicate that or duplicate that. In fact, if you look at it in terms of numbers, what we're doing is a drop in the ocean. So the question is that the kind of drop that could set a viral process in play? And that's why the emphasis, the space that's being created on the Work4Progress platform, the innovation platform, as Marta described it, is one in which we hope to create a space, a learning space, where people come together, they understand, they experiment, they find solutions, and create evidence on the basis of which many more agencies, many more organizations will be able to take forward the work of microenterprise development. By 2027, the organization Development Alternatives has made a commitment to reaching out to 1 million. In fact, our target by 2022, 5 years from now, is that we should get to a stage where we are supporting the establishment of 100 new micro-entrepreneurs every day. Dr. Khosla would like us to work for 365 days a year. If I could moderate that a little bit and say that in 300 days in a year, we'll get to 30,000 entrepreneurs every year, and hope those numbers will multiply, not just because of our own efforts, but because of efforts that all of you are willing and are committed to make in the coming years to support enterprise development that unleashes job creation on a mammoth scale. With those words, thank you very much. Dr. Panda, Marta, our guests, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Before we invite Dr. Panda, we'd actually like to share a short video with all of you. Basically, these are stories that have touched our lives in terms of entrepreneurship and job creation. So here's sharing the video with all of you.
ये गांव वाले को अकेले खेती का काम दिखाता है।
फर्स्ट ऑप्शन तो वैसे नौकरी है लोगों के लिए, अगर सरकारी जॉब मिल जाए, और नहीं मिलती है तो बिजनेस ही दूसरा उसके। खेती में उतनी आमदनी नहीं है।
हम ये सोच रहे हैं कि खेती का काम तो हर कोई करता है, लेकिन ऐसा एक काम करें कि जिसमें नाम रोशन हो और अच्छा काम हो।
मैं कैना गांव की हूँ और कैना में चूड़ियों की दुकान चलाती हूँ औरतों के लिए। जी, गांव की औरतें बाहर से माल लाती थी, मतलब सौदा, चूड़ी उड़ी वगैरह कंगन, और अब मैंने दुकान रख ली तो मेरे गांव से यहीं से लेती हैं, तो मतलब उनकी प्रॉब्लम भी सॉल्व हो गई और मेरी दुकान भी और बढ़ती जा रही।
हल्दी, मिर्ची, धनिया ये तो घर पे होती थी, तो हम अपने घर पे क्या करते थे, हम बाजार से नहीं लेते थे, तो हमें हमारा घर का माल हमें अच्छा लगा, तो हमने ये सोचा कि अगर हम अकेले खाएंगे तो हम शुद्ध रहेंगे, जैसे शुद्ध माल हम खाएंगे और 4 लोगों को खिलाएंगे तो सबको अच्छा लगेगा। इसलिए हमने ये काम 4 लोगों में 2 लोगों को साथ में लेके हमने काम किया।
गांव की महिलाओं को मैं बोर्ड बनाना सिखाती हूँ और स्टेबलाइजर का जो ट्रांसफार्मर होता है उसको बनवाती हूँ। ऐसा काम तो कोई महिला करती नहीं है, लेकिन हम भी देखते देखते सोचे कि हम भी ऐसा ही करें, जो नाम हो इसके कि हम बोर्ड का काम करते हैं, बिजली का काम कर रहे हैं। महिलाएं की, लड़कियां की इच्छा अब बढ़ी ऊपर अंदर से, उनको आइए सिखाएंगे हम।
ये मेरा मकान काफ़ी दिनों से खाली पड़ा था, तो यहाँ पे हम सोचे कि अंदर भी है, रोड पे तो है नहीं कि दुकान खोल के बैठ जाएंगे, इसलिए हमने इस आरोप के बारे में सोच लिए करने के लिए। नेट का ज़माना चल रहा है, उसे मोबाइल के जरिए इसको जानकारी धीरे धीरे लेते लेते 1.5 साल में हम लोग काफ़ी जगह गए और जानकारी जब कुछ समझ में आया तो ये काम यही चालू किया जाए।
कैमरा इसलिए लिया हमने कि हमें फिल्मों में जाने का शौक था। हम सोचे थे कि मैं फिल्मों में काम करूँगा। इसके बाद हमने कैमरा लिया तो हमें शादी के ऑफर आने लगे, तो फिर हम शादियों में अपना कैमरा ले जाने लगे। तो हमारे पास कैमरा बांधने के लिए आते ही निमंत्रण में कहीं और छपाना पड़ते थे, तो बोलते कि आप निमंत्रण भी छापते हो क्या? तो जब हम छापते नहीं थे, जब हमारे पास ज़्यादा मांग पड़ी तो हमने कहा कि हम ये काम भी कर लेंगे। तो जो हमारे वहाँ वीडियो कैमरा भी बांधने के लिए आते हैं उन्होंने कहा शादी कार्ड भी हम लोग छापते हैं।
हमारे पिताजी हो चाहे दादाजी हो, वो बिजनेस पुराने ढंग से कर रहे थे। उसमें हमने सोचा कुछ नई तकनीक लाएं जिससे और लोगों को रोजगार मिले और बढ़िया हमको भी फ़ायदा हो, व्यूअर को भी फ़ायदा हो। हमने एक कैंपस लगाए हुए हैं जिसमें 9 लूम हैंड नाटेड है, जिसमें 22 लोगों का रोजगार दे रहे हैं। इसके बाद इलेक्ट्रिक मशीन भी लगाए हैं जिसमें हमने 15 इलेक्ट्रिक मशीन लगाए हैं, इस समय 12 लोगों को रोजगार दे रहे हैं।
महंगाई बढ़ गया है भाई, इसीलिए महिलाएं बिजनेस करती हैं।
गांव में भी कोई की दुकान नहीं है, सिर्फ मेरी दुकान है।
क्योंकि सर ऐसा होता है कि अब हम लोग छोटे लोग हैं तो हमारी अच्छी चीज़ भी नज़रअंदाज कर दी जाती है। जो बड़े लोग हैं उनकी कोई भी चीज़ हो, मटेरियल हो, तो उनका सही रहता है कि हाँ जी सही है।
कठिनाई का सामना तो हर प्रकार होता है, कोई भी बिजनेस शुरू करिए।
नहीं, इस समय तो ज़रूरत है कि खरीदार जो मार्केट में जो जहाँ बिक रहा है वहाँ तक पहुँचने की,
मतलब बेचने के लिए कोई अच्छा से और बेचे, जहाँ जाए हमारा माल खपे और उसके आगे और हिम्मत बढ़े कि हम और बनाएं इसको, और महिलाओं को रखे बनवाएं, ये चाहते हैं।
जी, पैसे की दिक्कत सबको होती है। अगर किसी बिजनेस में पैसा ज़्यादा लगाएंगे तो प्रॉफिट ऑटोमेटिक बढ़ जाएगा।
अगर मुझे पूंजी मिल जाए जल्द से जल्द तो मैं अपनी दुकान को और जल्द से जल्द बढ़ा सकती हूँ।
जैसे आर्थिक रूप से हमारी मदद हुई तो आर्थिक रूप से सामान बढ़ाया तो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा बुकिंग ली, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जब बुकिंग लेंगी तो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों को रोजगार भी मिलेगा
और हमारा भी नाम रोशन होगा और ये अच्छा लगेगा हमें।
और समस्याएं सारी दूर हो जाएंगी।
It feels really proud that some of the stories that we've just seen here, some of these entrepreneurs are actually here with us today in the event. And मैं हमारे जितने भी उद्यमी यहाँ पर आए हैं उत्तर प्रदेश, बिहार, बुंदेलखंड से, मैं चाहूँगी कि आप खड़े हों, हम आपका सम्मान करना चाहेंगे. And let's give them a big round of applause. These are all our entrepreneurs there. So with this, thank you, Pat. And I'd like to request Dr. Panda to give his inaugural address, please.
Her Royal Highness Princess Christina, Dr. Khosla, Ms. Martha, Mr. Varghese, Mr. Patara, distinguished guests, delegates, और जितने भी हमारे उद्यमी बंधु जो आए हैं अलग अलग जगह से, मैं इंग्लिश में बोल रहा हूं क्योंकि हमारे कई लोग जो हैं वो बाहर से आए हैं, और थोड़ी बहुत मैं हिंदी में भी कोशिश कर लूँगा कभी कभार. And how much time do you give me actually? Okay, because I would like to kind of tailor whatever I have to say accordingly. Well, first of all, let me tell you that I was quite thrilled and delighted to really see that short film, and also to listen to all the different initiatives, including the first film which was shown about the Lakeisha, this banking foundation, the kind of beginning it had, and how it has focused, and now it has come down to the masses and focusing on the micro enterprises. When I attend, like I have been in this ministry for the last, today exactly I complete 5 months in this ministry. I mean, I had not worked in this field before. I was in the health ministry for a long time. I had worked in the very, very backward districts, areas of this country, in Koraput, in Kalahandi, in Keonjhar, primarily, which are inhabited by tribals, and where sometimes, people have to really walk quite a bit, actually, to access those hamlets over the top of the hills and all that. I've seen all that stuff. If you have gone to some of those areas, you would know what I'm talking about. Now, when we talk about entrepreneurship, when we are talking about industry, basically, till the other day, generally people think industry means people who are rich, people who actually go around in very expensive cars and, have big factories, and, that's the kind of thing. I mean, people generally, if you ask somebody that this person is an industrialist, this is the image which comes to everyone. I remember when we were in the schools and colleges, and I was just telling Mr. Varghese that when we are talking about what do we do after colleges, I mean, generally people used to say that, you have to be an engineer or a doctor or something, basically doing a job, not to be a job giver, but to be a job taker. That's the kind of thing, at least in my state of Odisha, I mean, that was the kind of thing, that people never used to think in terms of, becoming a job giver. And I'm sure, like, Madam Christina must have, if you have gone around the country, you see a lot of variation, lot of difference. There are some states where there is a culture of enterprise. People right from the beginning, they would not like to really come and compete for competitive exams to get into services and, do certain exams and all that. There is a general culture of amongst the people, how to start up a business, what is to be done. And I have seen it in very, very stark contrast in some states and not in some other states. Now, let me tell you, when we are talking about MSME, micro, small, medium enterprises, I mean, and we are talking about enterprises. It's not just manufacturing; it's also services. But this is the sector which is really kind of going up in a big way in this country. I need not really bore you with all the data and all that, which I'm sure you all know about it. What is the contribution? What is the size of this sector, and what exactly is being done? I believe there have been some kind of big challenges, big opportunities after the globalization, a lot of competition, and especially after the last, when the GST was launched. In fact, I joined this ministry the day the GST was launched. On the 30th of June evening, I joined this, and then that night itself GST was launched. And this is a huge paradigm shift, I would say. what is different after the GST has come? Let me tell you this, that all the micro enterprises and the small enterprises which hitherto were in the informal sector, informal mechanism, now have to come to the formal mechanism. Why and how? Because if I'm not registered in GSTN, suppose I want to, I'm not talking about the new, micro enterprises. I'm talking about people who have done reasonably well and all that, going beyond the 20 lakh threshold. So I have to register myself with the GSTN so that I get the opportunity to be a part of the value chain. So that, somebody who wants input tax credit would actually buy things from me. Otherwise, I will not be able to sell my products or services. So that's the big change. So when people talk about, challenges after GST has come to the micro and small, medium were more or less were in the formal sector. I'm talking about some small, not the entire one, but mostly in the micro sector. So this is something, a huge opportunity for all of us to kind of tell them that, look, gradually we have to come to the formal system. And if they come to the formal system, what's happening now in the micro sector? Many of them cannot access low-cost credit. They go to other sources and get credit sometimes at a very, very high rate. Now, if they come to the formal system and then there would be a credit history, the banks can come and they can access credit. So all that stuff, that's a big change, I would say. And then obviously in the globalized world, you have to compete. Even if you are a micro or small or whatever, you have to compete. You have to compete with the best, and you have to compete with also outside players. And as far as quality is concerned, as far as your pricing is concerned, you have to compete. Now let me share something also with you. We found that many of our MSMEs, mostly the micro and the small, sometimes they supply goods to the central government, to the state government, to the central PSCs, to other enterprises. Their products are their raw materials or inputs or something. So that kind of things. And we found out that sometimes these people who actually, these micro enterprises or small enterprises who supply these products or the services, they don't get their payment in time. So what happens? The working capital, everything gets kind of squeezed and stuck. So what do they do? In the last 1 month or so, you would be I don't know if you know it, the ministry actually launched a portal called MSME Samadhan. If you have not seen that portal, please do visit that portal. Now what is special about this portal? The MSME Samadhan actually empowers every micro small enterprise to kind of to upload the grievance. What is the grievance? The grievance is I have got a valid purchase order. I have supplied the goods and services with an invoice, but I am not getting my payment for 7 months, for 8 months, for a year. Now what do I do? Where do I get my working capital? How do I kind of carry on? So this gives them an opportunity to kind of put forth that in that portal, and the concerned ministry, the concerned central public sector enterprise or undertaking, or the concerned state government, the department, they would be able to see. And here in this, anybody can see, like for example, my CPSC or my ministry or somebody's, how many are pending for how long. So, and then we actually from the ministry, we sent emails to around 2 million such micro and small enterprises. More than 2 million actually. And suddenly you will see it's kind of going up by the hour, the number of cases and all that. And I know there will be tremendous pressure on everybody, right, from the state government, the CPSCs and the central government, and also the other MSCs to actually come up and not sit over that matter and to do this. So this is a small initiative which was taken. Now, the challenges of the micro sector, especially the micro and the small. Let me not talk about the small, because here we are concentrating on the micro. Well, you saw that short movie, where the lady is saying कि अगर पैसा मिल जाता तो हम बिजनेस और बढ़ाएंगे तो फिर प्रॉफिट और ज़्यादा कर पाएंगे, फिर उसके बाद में कुछ और लोगों को भी ले पाएंगे. I mean, basically that's what she was saying. And it is so right and so, it's a no-brainer, that it is actually required. People don't get money in time. And that too, low-cost capital. Now they go to different places. Now, the government has come up with something. For example, Mudra. For example, there is something called PMEGP, Prime Minister Employment Generation Program. We are actually scaling it up in the ministry. Now, there are other programs like, for example, Aspire and Sfurti, and there are a whole lot of things, and you can actually access the ministry's website. You can see what are the different programs. But what is the biggest challenge, I would say, in the micro sector is the lack of information. I mean, for example, I am staying in some village somewhere, You are talking about Bundelkhand, you are talking about Eastern UP, which is obviously, but also if you go to other parts of the country where you will find people just do not know about various things which are on the table, which they have a right to apply to that. I mean, that's where I see the biggest challenge. If you're talking about Bastar, if you're talking about Koraput, if you're talking about Gadchiroli, if you're talking about many parts of Jharkhand, and that's where I think we have to really kind of go and tell them that, look, this is what is your right. I mean, this is what you can do. उन लोगों को पता नहीं है कि भाई क्या हो क्या रहा है, मतलब क्या चीजें उपलब्ध क्या है हमारे लिए, उनको पता ही नहीं है इसके बारे में. आप जाएं, उनको देखें. और मैं तो ये कहना चाहूंगा कि हमारे जो यहाँ पे जो उद्यमी बैठे हुए हैं उनको ही हम ब्रांड एम्बेसडर करना चाहेंगे. मतलब हमारे पास ऐसे उद्यमी हैं, जैसे यहाँ पे कुछ बैठे हुए हैं आप लोग जाके दूसरों को बताएं कि देखिए मेरी भी ये प्रॉब्लम थी, लेकिन मैंने इसको इस तरीके से इसको हैंडल किया और आज आके हम यहाँ पे खड़े हुए हैं. तो मे बी वी कैन फाइंड आउट in every part of the country, especially in the places, and the districts and the where we do not have, people don't know much about this. Even if we have internet, even if we have television, we have everything, mobile phones and everything, but still these are the pockets, these are the areas where people don't know. Now, what is to be done for that? Now, I talked about, say for example, suppose I have made something. How do I market it? Is there anybody who is an aggregator? You will not believe, we have, let me share some of the data with you. Now we have, as per the NSSO survey, the last NSSO survey, we have around 6.63 million, let me put it in million terms. 6 करोड़ 34 लाख हमारे पास MSMEs हैं. सर्वे के ये सर्वे है, सेंसस नहीं है, सर्वे है. 63 million MSMEs. Okay, and most of them are micro. Most of them are micro. In the ministry, a couple of years back, a year back actually, they started something called. Now we don't have any database that we can contact, we can relate to, we can help them, we can. So they started something called Udyog Aadhar Memorandum, and it is on the base. You can actually, sitting here, using your mobile phone, you can register yourself. It's that easy, in 3 minutes, I'm told. But so far, out of 63 million MSMEs, we have had a registration of only 3.7 million. Okay. Now what does it mean? It means there are a very, very, very large number of micro units which are already everywhere there. Even if it has been made so easy, no certification, nothing, you can just do it yourself. We have not been able to do that. Now, I talked about GST, I talked about this, and there is another thing that which comes to my mind, I must share it with you. Now, there is something called Government E-Marketplace, which is called GEM. I'm sure you must have heard about that. Now, this is a platform which is actually giving opportunity to everyone. आप लोग जो आए हैं, आप लोग जेम प्लेटफॉर्म में आप जो आप बेच रहे हैं, उसको जेम प्लेटफॉर्म में आपने रजिस्टर किया अपने आप को? हमारे जो आप लोग आए हैं, उद्यमी बंधु जो आए हैं अलग अलग इलाके से, आप जरा जेम के बारे में पता लगाइए, गवर्नमेंट ई मार्केट प्लेस। अब मैं इसलिए कहना चाहता हूं कि कई लोग जो बहुत दूर दराज इलाके में बैठे हुए हैं, उनके सामान भी वहां पे वो बिक रहे हैं उसमें, वो जेम प्लेटफॉर्म में। तो आप कहीं भी बैठे तो दैट इज समथिंग दैट वी वांट टू रियली take it forward so that our micro units, our small units are actually registered in the GEM, so that whatever they are selling actually, gets their purchased by people sitting in different places of this country. Now, what are the different schemes? I just mentioned about Mudra. There's PMEGP. This is a big scheme. Mudra, as you know, is a big scheme of the government. Aspire, and Z, zero defect, zero effect. But that's essentially for the small entrepreneurs. Micro is, initial this thing, they are doing it in micro enterprise. So I would not like to really focus much on that. But you would be happy to know that, there are some schemes where it's called livelihood business incubators. I'm saying all this because I was asked to, talk about this. What are the different things? Otherwise, I won't have bored you with all these details. Livelihood business incubator, technology business incubators. There are some schemes in which anybody comes up with a bright idea or something can be taken to the incubator, and then, as you rightly said, dialogue, co-create, prototype, and learn. This can be done. Now there is a thinking in the government that when we're talking about agriculture, when we're talking about rural enterprise, rural business. Now, what is it that you want to? You can't go for a large, huge manufacturing or something. Basically, agri-business, how do you, that they can do? Looking for, credit, timely credit, low-cost credit. What do we do? How do we do it? How do we make people aware of all this? Let me tell you something, you must have heard about Swachhta Pakhwada. In the ministries these days, like, you do everything, every time of the year, but during a particular fortnight, you have to do Swachhta Pakhwada, the whole thing in a mission mode. Now that gave me some kind of an idea that why can't we really do MSME Pakhwada? Because we all tend to do things in Delhi or in the state capitals and all that. I think the challenge is to go right to the block level where we have to get people there. And what is the best skills that they have? What is the best products that they are actually doing? Are we aware of this? I don't think so. Now, how many of our people's representatives actually know the existence of all the different schemes, the different facilities, the different technology providers, the different incubators, the different skills, and the other things that I don't think many people know about that. So we, in the ministry, we have started talking to the state governments, and we are telling them that let's start an MSME Pakhwada. It's like an MSME fortnight, where we would start from the block level, right? At the block headquarters, we should get all the stakeholders, especially even the potential entrepreneurs, not necessarily the micro entrepreneurs, micro enterprises, the potential entrepreneurs, people who are looking for something to do. Let them come. And people who are actually doing it, I must share something with you, My last visit to Jaipur, I was asking about khadi. People generally think khadi, elderly people wear it, it's very uninteresting, that kind of thing. You will not believe somebody who is in Bikaner is not a very big fellow, person. And the kind of things that he is doing, his name is Sitaram Garg, I still remember, this gentleman, the kind of things that he is doing in khadi, One must see this, but we just don't know. So why can't we actually go right to the block level, identify, for example, development alternatives, there must be many others who are also doing similar things, but we don't see each other, we don't talk to each other. You know, that dialogue is not there because we don't know who all are there, who all are actually working. Can development alternatives, or can all of us sit together and find out, like, you know, talk to these state governments, identify every block, if not block, every district. You know, we have around 700 odd districts. What kind of requirement is there? Whether we have done a gap analysis, whether we have done a requirement analysis, and can we actually start this in a fortnight where all these people come together and try to figure out, try to learn from each other, as they said, have this dialogue, co-create, and do a prototype and learn, so that, you know, that can actually come from the block level to the district level, from the district level to the state level. Instead of going from Delhi and then like that, why can't we have the reverse direction, work in that direction? Now, this we have started, and some of the states actually have started doing this. But I think if development alternatives, after your today's discussion or something, if you could also let the ministry know your suggestions and all that. I'm sure, like, you all know much more than this, much more about this than I know. क्योंकि आप लोग इसी विषय पे काम कर रहे हैं, बहुत दिन से काम कर रहे हैं. मेरा जो तजुर्बा है वो तो 4-5 महीने की है. So I think if you can just let us know your recommendations, your thoughts as to what should be done. We are talking about doubling the farm income, you know, in the government. You know, how do you double the farmer's income in a particular timeline? Only by adding value. You know, so that kind of thing, what can possibly be done? Please let us know, so that from the ministry, at least, you know, we can start this dialogue process. And obviously we'll learn from that and we'll try to take it forward. Let's not see everywhere, you know, when we go, we talk about PPP, you know, public-private partnerships, and partnerships are important, collaborations are important. But I think PPP is obviously public-private partnership. It's also something, I think it's also, it can stand for processes, prices, and people. We have to make our processes much more efficient if we have to compete with others. Our prices are to be definitely much more competitive, much more, you know, attractive if you have to compete with others. And obviously our people, that's the most important thing, that, you know, we need to go to them, find out what is their skill set, what is it that they need. You know, the general, they say the helicopter view or the aeroplane view, you know, of development. From the aeroplane, you know, there's a gentleman called Fred Riggs, you know, if you have read his famous theory on development, that, you know, generally when all things started after independence, every country, you know, people used to take an, you know, kind of an aeroplane view, seeing development from an aeroplane. And then gradually we are coming to an helicopter view, you know, seeing people from a very, very close quarters. We have to really reach out to them. We have to go beyond Delhi, beyond state capitals. Now, recently there was a huge MSME convention in Bhopal, where the Honorable Chief Minister and other people were also there. Very large congregation, where also people talked about there is a need that we must disseminate this information. There's a huge information asymmetry. You know, some people and some parts of the country know about a lot of things, but a large number of people in the field do not know about various things. So I think we all can come together and we can have a dialogue. We can all co-create, and then we can learn from our mistakes and then carry it forward for the people, keeping people in mind. Thank you very much for your patience and attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Panda, for your inaugural remarks and setting the tone for the day's discussion. Some of the issues that you highlighted are of immense significance. I think the first, that systemic change is happening, measures such as the GST, that will definitely have an impact on what's happening on ground, and the question on how those changes can connect to the activity of micro-entrepreneurs. I think the point you made about the lack of information, about gaps over which bridges have to be built, whether it's related to technology providers and those solutions getting to entrepreneurs or others, we'll certainly take into account the point made about existing entrepreneurs becoming ambassadors, not just in this program, but hopefully in others. And thank you so much for the invitation to put together some of the ideas that we have, not just within development alternatives and not just within people in this room, but collectively across organizations and individuals that have been working in this area, and to share those with the ministry. Thank you so much. I'd now like all of us to please put your hands together. A round of applause for Martha, Dr. Arun Kumar Panda. And I'd like to invite you to take your seats. We'll move on with the rest of the program, sir. Yeah, and hope you would stay with us for as long as possible. Yeah. Oops, I'm sorry to take over. Sunanda, go on, please.
Dr. Panda, before you leave, we'd like to felicitate you with a small memento from our side.
My apologies. Yeah.
Kanika? So we've now come to the end of the inaugural session, and we'll be starting with the next, which is the plenary session. This will be chaired by Mr. Pankaj Pachauri. He's an eminent media personality. I'd like to call you here, sir. Mr. Pankaj Pachauri has more than 3 decades of editorial and management experience in the print and electronic media across 3 continents. And I'd like to now hand it over to him, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and I salute all of you for not investing your time and your money in Bitcoin, as rest of the world and rest of the bank seems to be doing tonight, in the morning today. And instead, talking about something which is of immense importance, not just to India, but to the rest of the world. In 2011, there was a National Integration Council meet, which I was invited to. It was about radicalization of the world and how it's posing a big problem to the world in 2011. The Prime Minister was there, the Home Minister was chairing it, almost all the state chief ministers were there, and I was the only person, I think, who said that the threat of disintegration to a country doesn't come from radicalization or even from missiles from North Korea. It actually comes from the lack of livelihoods in different parts of the world. Thank you very much, all of you. Royal Highness Princess Christina, George Varugis, Ashok Khosla, Dr. Arun K. Panda, who gave us such a long list of what the government is doing and how they are really interested in creating livelihoods. I would like to now call my guests for this session, who all of them I have known in the past, but for one. Arvind Virmani, Dr. Virmani. Dr. Virmani, I think, knows everything which is to be known about Indian economy. He is a repository of wisdom on Dr. Vimani. He has written more than 30 papers and books on Indian economy. We have discussed these subjects in the past many times, and I've tried to teach him Hindi also while doing it. He was one of the driving forces behind that with the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. And he's worked with the kings and prime ministers and presidents, but he's also worked with artisans in villages of India. Thank you very much, both of you. Shyam Sundar Yadav. Shyam Sundar ji, aye. That's my guest for the morning. What we need to know today is that from the government side, we've heard a lot of things about what the government is doing and has been doing for a long time about creating livelihoods which are sustainable and which reach the last village of India. But what we don't know is what is the state of play? What is the lay of land? What are the government plans to shift people from different sectors in the coming years? I have a very short presentation for that, and I'd like you to see so we know the kind of challenges we are facing in the coming days. Kanika, can we just have that? Hashtag jobs we want, I think we can, by the end of the day, get it trended on social media, and Raghav is going to help us in that. So this is what we are trying to do in India. There's very short time, and I'd like my guests to speak as much as possible, and then we'll try to take questions in the end. These are the employment projections by the Ministry of Skills Development and Entrepreneurship. 2013, we had 459 million people, which is going to increase to 578 by the end of 2022. Agriculture would be 37% of our total livelihood generation, and it has to decrease from 240 million to 215 million. This is the only area of our economy, the only sector in our economy where employment or livelihoods are going to go down. Real estate and construction is a very big area of livelihoods in India, and part-time jobs, 53 to 87%. Retail, which we think is going to boom in India, and every big retailer is coming to India, including San Miguel. Transportation and logistics, 16 million is going to increase to 28 million. Textile and clothing, which Rajiv is going to talk about with us a lot, is going to increase quite a lot. Education and skills, which we need at every step, from primary education to higher education to technical education, is about 3% of the total employment in the country in 2022, and it has to almost go up by 50%. Handlooms and handicrafts, and all the many of the entrepreneurs here are from this field, 11 to 17 million. Beauty and wellness, this we don't talk about, but you'll be very shocked that every small village in India now has a beauty parlor. And it's a very important part of India growing up. Furniture and furnishings, because we have a booming housing market in India, which is at present is not doing quite well, but because of that housing market increasing, we'll need a lot of furniture and furnishings, which is another big part you can see that the employment in this area is going to more than double in coming days. Tourism, which is another great Indian selling point. Now comes the crunch, and this is I'd like you to see it carefully. Agriculture currently is only 15% of our economy, and it provides livelihoods to 52% people. So that's the big one. Manufacturing is about 17%, providing livelihoods to about 10%. Construction, where people move usually from agriculture, from the villages and rural areas to the urban areas, is another big area which is going to provide which provides about 11% of our livelihoods today, and others. And this is the crux, that our economy is growing basically in the services sector, which is 60% of our entire GDP, but is providing livelihoods only to 27% people. So we have to keep all this in mind. And this is the trajectory of these different sectors which I have just shown you. If you look at agriculture, it's the bottom one, which went into negative in 2014-15 and came up again. It's always under pressure. Agriculture is key in India because currently it's providing livelihoods to more than half the country's population, and it's only 15% of our GDP. Then you look at construction, which is flat line since 2013-14. Construction area is not working very well. Then you have manufacturing, which goes up and down, and right now it's on its way down. And that's the state of play in India. Now, the points we need to remember about livelihoods in India, entrepreneurships, microfinancing, when we are talking about, when we are not talking about Bitcoin today. I keep saying Bitcoin, coming back to it, because it has just given 11% return in 12 hours yesterday. Small holdings, that's the problem with India's agriculture. 84% of our holdings are less than 2 hectares, so they're very small. And they are financially not viable for a household of 5 people. So we need smart farms. You'll be hearing about it later, that how now companies are trying to Uberize agricultural equipment. That how you can get, like you get a car or you taxi from Uber, you can get your tractor and your agricultural implements, and you'll be hearing about it later. So that's the only way for viable farming. Smart loans, which are microfinancing loans, which has less stress. Our experience in giving big loans to farmers has always been that you have to waive off those loans after 5, 6 years or 10 years. After the farmers come on the streets because they cannot pay the loan back. Organic farms, and organic farming is one thing which what we've been hearing about today, which adds value to the farming produce. Organic products all over the world are 15 to 30% higher revenue generating than other farm produce. That's one area we have to think about. Then we have to think about rural logistics. All the things we've been talking about, that how to all the schemes of the government, e-market and this, that, but we don't think about the logistics. Only 65% of Indian women living in rural areas do not have a phone. Forget about a smartphone and forget about getting onto a government website and using a government app. So that's logistics. We have to invest in that logistics also. So every village has a small shop which actually connects people of that village to the rest of the world. That's very important. And sustainable farming. If we can give sustainable farming and livelihoods in our villages, we will have less pressure on our cities because the migration is going to recede or at least stop. I'm sure people are not going to go back to their villages from their cities, but that's, and this is what Pandit Nehru said in 1947, and he was referring to 1942-43 drought and the lack of food stuff in India. But 70 years on, I think it's still crucial and critical for us to keep thinking about agriculture, Everything else can wait, but not agriculture. That's it. Thank you. And so this is the state of play, as we say, in livelihoods, entrepreneurship, microfinancing, rural India, jobs we want. I'll start asking Dr. Vimani, who, as I said, is there a mic there? You want to come here or you want to be there? You're mic'd up. That's fine. Okay. What should be our top focus, if we say 1, 2, 3, 4, when we are talking about providing livelihoods to the numbers we've just seen, which about 330 million people, which is the current population of United States. You want to come here? Please come.
So implicitly, I will.
Yeah, that's
I will
what.
answer your question, but I want to make one basic point. Which how much time do you want me to spend on that?
We have about 40 minutes for this entire thing. So
yeah, I was told. Oh, okay.
10 minutes.
I was told 8-10 minutes, but I'll make it as short as possible. Do you want to reset that? I'd like to see my timing, time remaining, or I'll take his time. Oh, okay. So actually, I'll implicitly answer the question, but the point I really wanted to make is about the basic duality. It's there in everything people says, but you see, I come from a public policy background. I spent, which perhaps was not clear from Pankaj's introduction, 30 years advising on public policy. So that's a perspective I want to give, and I'm going to simplify it immensely by talking about the duality in the economy and the necessity of thinking about policy in these two compartments. Obviously, in the real world, it's all a continuum, but to think about it, okay? So what is this dual economy? Again, everybody knows about it, but what they don't do is connect with the policy. That's what I want to emphasize. And your question will be answered in the second part, which is the informal sector. So in the formal, so we have this one part of the economy, which is formal, globalized, modern, internationally competitive. And here we have discussions. You talk about bitcoins. Now I hear all the time is artificial intelligence and robotics. You know, so really that's way out there. That's a different economy. Okay, but not necessarily wrong to think about it. So how does one? So and part of it is modern technology, education, skills, management of world standards. You know. So that's one area. Here, the policy framework, very quickly before I go on to the part which obviously you are all interested in, is that this part of the economy is too heavily controlled. So we need to move from controls to modern professional regulation. The way I put it recently was, you know, we talk a lot about make in India, educate in India. A huge proportion of our young population, the one which is going to enter this economy, goes abroad for education. We don't have the regulatory structures and the approach to public policy. So the key issue here is the public policy framework, including labor laws. I don't want to talk too much about it because you're not interested, but here I want to mention, which is something which is also relevant. When we talk about AI, etc., we are talking about risks. One of the things we've learned from institutional economics is the best way to deal with risk is diversity. So really you need openness, you need deregulation, you need decontrol. I call it decontrol, not deregulation. Intelligent regulation is needed in many sectors. So you diversify, you promote, and that's the counterpart exactly of the rural part you're talking about. And for that, you've got to, you know, the phrase which often comes to mind is this 100 flowers bloom. Completely wrong, opposite of Mao, but he would be a disaster. Okay, so there's this part which requires policy, the framework, little bit of intervention. The only interventions really are required in very special areas like R&D, planning, etc. I won't go into it. Let me move to the second part. So the second part is the informal economy, unorganized, largely rural, provincial, where you have mostly and semi-educated, unskilled people, constituting, as everybody knows, roughly 90% of this, of which the small and tiny part is roughly 70 or 80%, and within it, about 50% is self-employed. It's just individuals, one individuals. If you add enterprises with 1 or 2 employees, that gets you most of that sector, 70, 80%. So that's where the people are. That's where the employment is. So the way I say is, in the first part of the economy, you should think of jobs. In the second part, you should think of employment, because the most important part of it is self-employment. And here there are 2 strands. One is the traditional agriculture, where 50 years ago we used to discuss, and I worked out a solution for this, was that it's underemployment. It's seasonal underemployment. You have spurts of jobs in agriculture, harvesting, planting. In 1999, I put the most important labor reform was what I call we have is we convert, transform the whole of India, the whole world, the whole rural. Disastrous. I'm sorry to say, we never focus on the thing. So what is the thing? The second part of it, of course, is, as I said, self-employment, services. You know what's happening? Manufacturing is shifting. If you look at the structure of the economy, is shifting from urban to rural areas. Services are shifting the other way. Strange things happen because we don't do things right. We don't focus on the problem. So what is the policy issue here? Here it is always about productivity, the quality of services. The quality of service, the productivity of the service, it's low. Why? Education and skills. I had some data which I just came across recently, which I'll just give you because you're unlikely to have seen it. It's quite recent. We find that in rural workers, secondary education and above has gone up from 19.7% to 27%. Technical education gone down as a proportion. Vocational education increased by a marginal amount from 14.4 to 15.4. Now this 27 actually sounds impressive. This is male, sorry, this is the male, the total is 22. Not so impressive because female education is less. But if you look at the ACER surveys and the other surveys which have been done, these people can't even read. 30% of them can't operate at the primary level. What to talk about secondary? Probably rural sector is basic education. 3 hours, people cannot converse. There are several startups I know of personally who are just teaching. Their job skill they are teaching is not the job skills which they actually need. They are teaching communication. Okay? How to go to an interview and tell them how intelligent you are. Okay? So basic education. Now people talk about private and public. I find quite amazing here. We have a comprehensive system which was supposedly set up in the 1950s and 60s of government primary schools, secondary schools, etc. What is it doing? It's not teaching actually. So basic education and job skills. In my view, that's the top priority in this sector of the economy which we are discussing. I think I'll kind of conclude with that. You asked me for one thing. I will stop with that, and if there are more questions and all, we can go into it. So infrastructure, etc., we will discuss. That is all. The only one thing I want to mention and give you an interesting example of this. Basic health, okay, public health, what we used to call, which I have been pushing for 20 years. You know, when we talk about health here in Delhi, we talk about cancer patient, we talk about somebody who had a heart attack in a village and couldn't get there. Those are minuscule. It's public health system. The sanitation, etc., is pathetic. That is where, if you think of the big changes in longevity which occurred in Europe, in fact, our guests here will probably should know that and tell us. In London, when the sewage system was set up, there was a doubling of the longevity of the public health. That is the key. So here's the example. I was recently talking to the secretary in charge of the Swachh Bharat campaign. Okay? Public health, sanitation. He's saying we go to the villages and there are not enough masons to make the two-pit toilet, which is a basic feature of this thing. They don't even have this basic skill. You know, you would think that rural masons, there would be tons of them. Construction, by the way, is one of the activity which is doing pretty well, except that productivity is not changing because you're not giving them the skills. So what they've had to do is they've got to go down there and create the skills which will be needed for the Swachh Bharat campaign. Okay? So let me leave you. And there are thousands of examples like that. There's just no basic skills. There's no upgradation.
Thank you, Dr. Vemani, and I apologize for not speaking for 20 minutes about all the work you've done.
No, I meant only the public policy.
Dr. Vemani has been the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, and he is very passionate about this particular subject, which is livelihoods and macroeconomy. Next speaker is Rajiv Sethi, who has worked with artisans for about 40 years now, and he's represented India to almost every country which is there on the globe. Rajiv, when we talk about artisanship, and which is connected to the huge macro economy of textiles, of exports, what do you think is happening today that we are not scaling up that particular craft and the business which it involves?
Pankaj, although I'm very happy to be, I didn't quite know I was going to be part of a panel discussion. So I have a presentation.
You have a presentation, please go ahead.
But I mean,
that'll be very nice.
Last panel I attended was about 2 decades ago, so I've somewhat lost contact with how to have a dialogue. As I was coming in, I was caught in a traffic jam, and there was saying 99% Indians work on the principle of rocket science. It works on skill development, and there was some discussions on how to map it, etc. But here we are speaking on, मुझे लगा कि जो उद्यमी यहाँ पे बैठे हैं वो तो हिंदी में बोलेंगे, मैं कुछ हमारे बाहर के मेहमान भी हैं जो अंग्रेजी में बोलेंगे, तो मेरे ख्याल मिली जुली बातचीत होगी। हमें कहा जाता है कि दस्तकार दरिया काबिलों की उम्र बढ़ जाती है, खुद कर लो हिसाब, हुनरमंद का एक दिन बा हुनर का एक साल। So the huge issue of being able to really understand what skill is, and especially now when the problem is really hitting us on the face, the fire has been lit. You have 12 million young people educated, mostly de-skilled, coming onto the road with nothing to do, empty pockets. Where does this all lead to? And we have seen figures that tell us about what we have to achieve. I have not for a moment doubt that these are simply not possible till there's a complete shift in the way we start thinking of what skill indeed is and what pedagogy to get to that is also about. But to cut it short and to be able to not go into a tangent of speaking, I thought I'll just show you things. I'm an artist, so I think it's important for me to share with you what I do, and perhaps obliquely also mention the huge honor that I've had in being able to work with so many people that I've admired. My Hamsafar Ashok here, and many people that I know are sitting in the room that I will find out later. Now, I represent the Asian Heritage Foundation, something I set up. If we can have some less lights, it just will improve the quality of the view, and you can darkness will help you take a nap. I still would like it to be less. You know, artists can be fussy. And there is these lights which, you know, what you had in the beginning when you were showing a picture would be much easier for me. Please, if it's possible to have these lights off, the others will be easier. Now, the foundation was set up about 22 years ago, and this presentation is going to cover very briefly an overview on what we do, just to explain the kind of skills we've been talking to. There's issue of transition and empowerment, and a very large component that I didn't see being referred to is the creative and cultural industry, which clubs 3 or 4 of the issues that you mentioned, but it includes many more that requires to be mapped and requires to be seen. And those figures would put all your other figures completely in the background. So then I will show you a project called GEO, which is actually happening in the field. 6 of the poorest states in India, poor in material terms, but paradoxically richest in terms of heritage: Orissa, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Telangana, Andhra, and Bihar. It's a belt which is known for many other things, and that also is linked to poverty, and the way forward. So, as I said, the foundation is for research and documentation, training, transmission, promotion, and preservation. Its spectrum of activities includes livelihood and institutional programs, artwork programs, exhibitions, festivals, symposiums, events and performing arts, advocacy, publication, and a great deal of relief. So just very quickly to tell you the things, I just finished the Bombay airport, which had 1,500 artists, many of them not again part of the infrastructure for skills who created this. It was done for over 4 years, but of course they represent thousands and thousands of more skilled people who also have not been seen in mainstream spaces. There's a hospitality space and in residential spaces, again working with many craftspeople on the site itself. But I'm not going into the detail because that's another presentation altogether. But it's not about the aesthetics of it or the skills that I've been fortunate to work with, but just to give you an idea as to how vast this spectrum is. Now, at the moment, we've been showing you crafts, but there is also an enormous market for this, because when I was doing the Silk Route for the Smithsonian in America, we realized that there was a great deal to be learned from our neighboring countries and even from the Asian countries through which this route goes. There was a big thing in Barcelona where I was asked to be the main scenographer for the forum, Universal Forum, of which provides connection between performing arts and the concept of making, doing, and being. They cannot be segmented, they cannot be differentiated, and therefore the idea of creative and cultural industries plays a very important part in our trajectory of work. These are plays that I have been doing, which in different parts of the world. There's Peter Brook's Mahabharata, and then lately we have seen that there's great synergy in the neighborhood. Of course, we talk about Asia, but we are really very concerned about what's happening to our immediate neighborhood, and where 40% of the poorest reside, and it is the most militarized, and what can come from learning from each other. This was meant to be developed into a South Asian Design, Arts and Technology Kendra, which, in spite of me speaking about it for 30 years, I don't think will happen probably in my lifetime, but there are young people now working to make it happen. And lastly, I will show you GEO, which is a World Bank supported Japan Social Development Fund program that has been working in the 6 states that I talked about. Just a little bit about the human face. This is a weaver's hut in Chenalpatti. Hut after hut, which was first rich with a certain textile tradition, and the town has now been replaced by power looms representing big banners that are being reproduced in villages. And again, hut after hut, it's just a graveyard of looms and being sold as firewood. These people, this is 25 years back when I went to here, I searched for the ones who left their homes. This is Gopal, his mother Muthamma, who have made the last sari in Chenalpatti. This is near Madurai. He works now to sell balloons. He worked then for selling balloons. I hope he has been able to do many more things. His wife works as a housemaid. Who knows, the man driving a rickshaw, selling vegetables or selling garbage are the same people who made India famous for what they are. India clothed the world. It can continue to do so with design-led enterprise. Of course, the next section, which again is part of this, is folk healing and ecosystems and ethnic community sources. Again, issues that I won't be able to go into. I'm suddenly realizing that although my friend has told me that I can speak for 5 more minutes, but this is more than here than I have even in there. So there's traditional foodways. We are very involved right now with tribal foods. Of course, we've been having various workshops based on that. And a very important part in performance is that people who are performers are also craftspeople. So here if there is a chow, you see a man making the mask. It's the same person. If there are people, there are acrobats who can go into a whole new section. They can be in the well-being industry. Again, as for performers, here is a patwa numbering in thousands who also paint their own work, and they also sing with it. Likewise, here the bhopas who paint and sing and create the lyrics. Now, when we go to the government, one part of him which paints goes to Department of Textiles. The other part that sings has to go to Department of Culture, because these are two different people, they're two different categories. So therefore, this whole idea of creative and cultural industries is to understand the synergy of how we have represented culture. This is Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay and Popul Jaikar, my mentors, who brought me into this. We set up the first cooperative of these performing artists about 40 years ago. It was difficult to set the cooperative up because people didn't know how to measure talent. We also built their own homes and housing. There was barefoot architecture that applied their sciences to be making their homes. They challenged the whole concept of urban density when they organized themselves first. Like that, there are many artists who live in dirty, whose homes are open to areas where the art should not technically survive. We put these together too as cooperatives, but as urbanism, because smart cities have no place for art and heritage. The last month, one whole settlement of puppeteers, acrobats, and magicians was razed to the ground, and nothing was done to be able to prevent it. Nobody realized what these people can do in terms of contemporary medium. In contemporary arts, many contemporary artists have worked with traditional artists to give them a whole new meaning, and I just wanted to give you a very brief picture of what happened in one of the festivals that you referred to, Pankaj, called the Golden Eye, where I really dealt on what was a rule in it's a guideline given by the Ministry of Urban Housing, that 2% of all building activity has to go towards arts and craft. So imagine the building infrastructure that you mentioned. If just 2% of that went legitimately to the arts and crafts, it would be much more than what all the galleries, all the museums can put together as their budget. But this has never been used. So the idea was to bring in some of the most eminent architects to come and work with me in villages. where they are employed for food for work programs. These is again Kesari Ram, who was working in that program, but he built this bench for this exhibition called the Golden Eye. She has a household scheme, Teji Ben, but she's the one who made the big tents for Fry Auto. Ettore Sotsas, working on inlays from little napkin sketches that I've shown here. Fry Auto people working on antique daggers can also make forks and knives. They produce all this made by hand. Now, made by hand is an issue that is slowly being overtaken by machine. Artificial intelligence, robotics is likely to take over in any case. But I think the next shift is going to come from the heart. It's really not about artificial intelligence. It's what the heart can do. This hand-eye-spirit connection that we have to see the future of India in. I won't be able to go through all this, but I just wanted very quickly to tell you how we worked with women who worked with cow dung to create new things on embroideries, on innovative makers, on the value of pedagogy, and then framing a transdisciplinary discourse. In India, we have the Vishnu Dharmottara Puran that says to be a painter, you have to be a sculptor. To be a sculptor, you have to be a poet. A poet requires to be a musician, mathematics, and then many other things get connected. Now, creative and cultural industries, this is the formal description we gave to it in Jodhpur, which has now been accepted the world over. Again, we still have not accepted it in the government of India. If you recall, you interviewed me once at the Planning Commission where I spoke about it, but that whole report, which is 1,500 page, lies somewhere in a rotting. Now, I won't be able to go into the CCIC and what it does and what in global economic terms, and particularly for India, what it means, the fact where it is spread all over the world, but where it isn't still in our country. I will just concentrate on South Asia, for which again there has been an enormous amount of interest around the world. We produced these 2 volumes called Asian Journey, and why we thought it was essential to be able to see South Asia together. The problems are clear, and I indicated them. The strengths of our neighborhood is also clear, and I'm mentioning it in this forum because I think that there's a lot to be learned. The people from Multan can teach us about earth dyes that our potters could benefit. The Bhaktapur weavers from Nepal could, metal casters could teach people in Swami Malai. There's a huge amount in Bangladesh of Dhaka Malmal that can help the enormous amount of weavers. You're going to speak to one a little later, but we've not been able to use this synergy because political boundaries divided what culture could have done better. The future, of course, remains handmade, and I talk about the advantage of South Asia. In the South Asian thing, these are a vast resource. In the Planning Commission thing that I spoke about, there was a whole strategy drawn out and a program given to the government, but it hasn't taken off. We have many things that we need to do right now and seek immediate action on go, but really the building of brands in India, you have Lalique, you have Fabergé, you have Tiffany, no reason why you couldn't do it with the hundreds of clusters. There's Teva, there's Koftkari, there's Bidri. Every village can have a product that could be its own geographical indication for what it has to do. There's marketing and promotion. And then finally, what we have done tangibly in the 5-6 states that I mentioned, and in Nepal in the poverty alleviation program. Again, we talk of geo-homes, geo-live, geo-media, geo-motion, geo-style, geo-learning, geo-well-being, geo-foods, and the visual references of this, whether these Maya series wallpapers, hand-painted wallpaper, furniture, things in kalamkari, Bhavan Bhuti, a belt that got completely finished in Baswan Biga in Bihar, toys, Dola Bomalatta, Sikhi, saris, which are from embroideries to Pochampalli to ikats, brick making, which is big, boat making, a huge field. Now with the rivers being talked about for navigation is an enormous employer. Animation, why should, by just putting a dhoti on Spider-Man, you're not going to give content to India. You're just going to get more eyeballs for some people who own Spider-Man. But what about creating your own characters, your own stories? And we are full of them. Again, forest foods. There's We were mentioned about rural beauty clinics. We are working on that. These are the publications. So the GEO framework is mapping of CCI, synergy and integration CCI, R&D, organizing value chain, ownership, monitoring and evaluation. India Creates is a way we are doing on phones, how phones will help us through reality contests, map the entire country. And these 6 states have a name: Geo Jhunjhar, Geo Mastpel for Madhya Pradesh, Geo Magdum for Patna, Geo Kalinga for Odisha, and Geo Vichit for Andhra. So these are the R&D activities. I'm not going to go into the details of the ownership and how it is directly beneficial to the stakeholders and the salient features of the project, because I've taken way over my time. And just to tell you that there is so much in this field, and I congratulate Development Alternatives, congratulate the Bank of Spain to be able to look at this sector. But it's, at the moment, the tip of the iceberg. You only see one portion of it. The remaining is what you now have to explore to find out more. Thank you. Forgive me for doing this very hurriedly.
Thank you, Rajiv. Artists, you know, as Rajiv said, they work from their heart, and this is what he's been doing, and they don't connect the dots to their brains, and which I'll try to do that. What he's talked about basically is that the 10 sectors we saw, among from 10 sectors, you've touched almost, I think, 70% of those. Handlooms and handicrafts, we have seen furnitures and furnishings, we have seen agriculture, we have seen in heritage, we have seen tourism area, so health, and even agriculture. When you are talking about foods, local foods are very important these days, and some millet grown in Jharkhand would sell for a lot of money in somewhere in Boulder or in Europe. So we have to just connect these things, and these are the people who teach that microfinance. When we talk about India and how it's connected and how the rural people can log into the huge infrastructure the government has created, we forget that the capex of a farmer for a year is less than the price of a laptop. It's a 50,000-60,000 rupees. If he has to invest in a laptop to connect to the government facilities, this is the Secretary Sahab was talking about. In 60,000 rupees, he can actually do something there, buy seeds, and give employment to more people. So that's the disconnect we've been facing. Shyam Sundar Yadav is with us from Bhadoi, which is Shyam Sundar जी, मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहूँगा कि आपके जो साथ के लोग हैं, अभी सेक्रेटरी साहब आए थे, राजीव जी ने इतना हमें बताया, उनके लिए एक लैपटॉप खरीद करके और ये गवर्नमेंट के जितने ऐप्स हैं या गवर्नमेंट की जितनी स्कीम्स हैं, इनको डाउनलोड करना या उनसे कनेक्ट करना या जीएसटी का बिल भरना कितना मुश्किल होता है?
आप लोग भाइयों और बहनों से निवेदन,
जो लोन चाहिए वो मिल जाता है आसानी से इन चीज़ों के लिए?
नहीं, इतना आसानी से नहीं मिल पाता है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे इतने फॉलोअप सिस्टम बना दिए हैं कि शायद इतने आसानी से जितने लोग वहाँ पे हमारे साथ काम करना चाहते उस ढंग से काम नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, क्योंकि उनको अगर आप अगर जुड़ना चाहते हैं तो सीधे सीधे एक तरह से कि क्राइम जिसको कहते हैं कि कम से कम हमको भी बेनिफिट हो जो वहाँ पे लोग हैं जी, तो फिर हम आपको लोन दे सकते हैं, इसके पहले बहुत कम सोचते हैं।
दूसरी बात ये कि सेक्रेटरी साहब भी यहाँ भी आए थे सुबह और अभी भी हैं यहाँ पर। दो चीज़ें अगर आपको सरकार को बोलनी हो कि भाई ये दो चीज़ें हमारे लिए कर दीजिए, हमारी जो भदोई में जो इंडस्ट्री है उसका बहुत भला हो जाएगा, वो दो चीज़ें क्या है?
पहले चीज़ तो यही है कि सर कि जो हम लोगों के यहाँ कारपोरेट का काम चल रहा है या और आगे चलाने के लिए प्रक्रिया चल रही है, उसमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा हम लोगों के लिए पैसे की इस समय अभाव है, क्लियर सी बात है, क्योंकि जो जीएसटी लगे हुए हैं उसमें हम लोगों को निवेश पूंजी ज़्यादा लगाना पड़ रहा है और प्रॉफिट कम हो रहे हैं.
Credit line, I just got to explain that. He's talking about the credit line which has been basically suppressed after the news. So that's one thing. दूसरा,
प्लस और प्राइस बहुत ज़्यादा पड़ रहा है. इसके अपेक्षा में हम लोगों को प्राइस कम मिल रहे हैं, जिससे
he has to actually import some of it to export it further after making a carpet. That has also increased. So the problem even in the micro sector, you can see here, is the same problem as people. You want to say something? People who at the CII and FICCI are facing. So it's a microcosm actually of what the largest banker in India is facing as the smallest artisan in a village. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
थैंक यू.
और हमारे साथ अपनी बातें करने के लिए हमें इस बात की उम्मीद है कि वो होगा. आइए इधर आइए, बैठिए. My last guest before we throw it open for some questions is Raghav Chandra of Urban Clap. Raghav, first you tell what you've been doing, and then I'm really interested in why the Twitter base is so low in our rural areas.
I have a mic.
You
I'll
have a
take the
mic.
podium nevertheless. It will help the blood flow and structure thoughts better, hopefully. All the speakers have been so inspirational. I've probably already forgotten what I had to say. So I'm going to keep looking at my phone and cheating. So yeah, I'm one of the founders at Urban Clap. We are a startup. We are 3 years old. And what we do is really trying to structure the at-home services, right? So be it fixing your home, from handymen to personal care such as beauty, fitness trainers, to academic lessons, tutors, to event-based services such as photographers, or even really large-scale projects, interior designers, and so on and so forth, right? Maybe what would be interesting is let me walk you through an example of a person, Geeta, and see what a typical scenario would be and how. Now, Geeta is a regular low-income woman. Probably she works in a salon, right? So she works 6 days or 5 days a week in a salon. She'd probably be doing 2-3 jobs in that salon. She's employed, so she can be doing any number of jobs, or she could be doing 0. She still gets a salary. The thing is, her typical monthly income would be somewhere around 20,000, right? It would range from 15,000 rupees to 25,000 rupees at best. Now the interesting thing is the service which she does, she's actually only getting 30% of the value add, even though she's the main professional who's providing the service, right? So then you start thinking, all right, great. So 70% is going to the salon owner. And this is, by the way, this is a typical example of any unorganized sector, right? The salon itself, the owner is providing this organized behavior. They're doing the upskilling, and that's why they're able to pocket so much. And also, there's a lot of data transparency gap, right? Geeta is not empowered enough, so she can't escape that boundary. So starting off with now, how do we go about this? How do we solve this? Right, so first thing is, well, Geeta cannot open her own salon. She does not have the capital. So can you change the paradigm? Well, probably you can. You can probably send Geeta straight to the home if someone wants a manicure or a pedicure. Right? It's a fairly hygiene service. It makes sense. So great. Geeta can go home. You'll have to fix the pricing. Auto rickshaw aggregators start looking at microfinancing or subsidizing scooters or something to do. It could be based on reviews for online aggregators, or there are various other ways, right? Did she show up on time? Probably the biggest problem, right? You call a plumber, your local plumber in your household. We generate about 300,000 requests for services, right? So these are 300,000 opportunities for professionals to take part, get that business. And our biggest challenge is actually, other than of course the growth and the nuances of running a business, it's really about how do you go deeper, solve for these categories in a better way, right? How do you define, you have to really define unstructured categories. Right? So how do you figure out this incentive mechanism which works for professionals, that empowers them, but at the same time has to work for the customer, because if the professional is not going to be hired, it's pointless. You can empower him all you want, he's not going to do the job. So yeah, we basically define categories. In short, so linking this whole thing, how do we solve this problem of empowerment and employing? You start by defining a category, defining the rule book.
That's really impressive. Thank you very much. This thing, and now I'm going to put a very moral dilemma. Do you all want to go for lunch, or do you want to ask questions? So I think, please, quickly, 2 questions. This thing has come. Can we give the mic to people? I mean, this was a trick question which I asked. Anyone? My experience as an anchor has been that the first question no one will ask. After that, everyone will ask 2. There's one hand going up there.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah.
My name is Julia Kennedy. I'm here with USAID. And thank you all for your wonderful presentations. Very fascinating. I am interested, for the last speaker, the model that you're talking about. How do you see connections to some of the rural, potentially the creative and commercial industries that the speaker from Asian Heritage Foundation raised, or for rural enterprises? Because I certainly see it from the urban services sector, but from the rural sector, I'm wondering if you think there could be a similar model.
Does this work? This works. So probably would not have the best answer, because we do deal with urban services. It's an easier model to first crack. But the problem which I see when you start attacking the rural or the cities, even for our case, is really about discovery. Right? So you need that right education. So it starts with a lot to do with awareness. Even on the consumer side, they need to care for quality. Right? They may have not experienced quality, so it defeats the point. On the professional side, it starts with a lot of discovery. Right? If the professional in a rural environment does not know of the tools available, does not know of the opportunity available, that's really where the problem lies. Right? So an equivalent challenge which we face, which is similar, is now how do we increase the supply, right? If you want better carpenters, more carpenters, even in the city you don't have, right? For us, discovery. We'd go out into and try finding schools which empower, educate. Once that goes off and saturates, find other ways to kind of go about it. But there's no easy answer to that.
Yeah. I think the only answer to that basically is what he didn't answer, that the base of Twitter in rural India is very low. So how can you provide all this stuff? There was one more hand going up there in the back. Yes, sir. By Twitter, I mean connectivity.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yogesh Jadhav from Burley Development Institute for Rural Women. We are a very small NGO who is involved in training and development of training and empowerment of rural and tribal women based in Indore since past 32 years. And we have trained more than 8,500 women in life skills. My only question, rather it's a curiosity for all the august audience here. Can or should monetary incentives be the only yardstick for a very profound yet vague concept which we are yet to figure out, called as sustainability? Or is there something else which we need to tackle if you are going to see the agenda, 2030 and SDGs 17 multiplied by so many indicators? Thank you.
Dr. Vimani. This is so complicated that only you can handle it.
No, but monetary incentives for whom? Anyway, we set up a public, it's supposed to work here. I don't know what this purpose of this is then. Iska kya fayda?
Back up.
Pointless. Actually, that's a good metaphor. So here we are. We have set up this huge modern public education system. It's right there from the village level upwards. We have a health system, and it had a particular purpose. It was not achieved. So the obvious thing to do would be, I mean, you would think, is find out why it doesn't work, and not try the same solution again and again. I'll tell you one example. What we found was both in the health system and in the public education system, the teachers or the nurses or the doctors don't go there. Okay, there used to be something like 60% absenteeism the last time I was involved in this. And every time we used to come up with a solution of force, okay? Don't allow them to do this or that. Get students to spend 2 years somewhere. We've tried that indefinitely. The problem with us is we never learn and we never move forward. So in my last year in the Planning Commission, when I was asked to do it, and that kind of links to your question, is that the only way I could figure out which has not been tried and which may work is digital connectivity, e-learning, e-health, which a lot of things can be solved, okay? How to do it exactly would have to be planned, because, for example, we find in education, it's the teacher who can benefit the most initially with connectivity. It's not the students, you know, because they don't have any concept. They don't have the knowledge. So what is the solution? It is Digital India. I mean, this e-governance initiative, I was probably the first one to go publicly. I think these two initiatives are very, very important. The Swachh Bharat, which is critical to public health, and the digital and e-governance connectivity to rural areas. And the rest will follow. Unfortunately, till it's in place, there's not much.
And as Shyam Sundar told us, I mean, the problem, both these things are basically CapEx and OpEx. Because there's credit squeeze, and then the costs are very high for
Yes
both
and
the.
no. I'm sorry, I don't agree. Because if you have e-governance, you will have a person there. No, it's like the Uber, who somebody mentioned Uber, right? You'll be able to go and pay for 5 minutes of usage. The connectivity is important.
What we discussed earlier.
Yeah, if you can have car sharing, you can certainly go and share a computer.
Absolutely. Tractor sharing, car sharing. Time is of essence in this. In 2011, we needed 10 million jobs in India, another 10 years to bridge the gap of employment and livelihoods. Now, 6 years on, we have already now graduated to 12 million jobs a year for 12 years. So we are losing time, and that's what we all have to keep in mind. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bajit. Thank you, Dr. Bhimani. Shyam Sundar, there's one more question there. Quickly, you are not hungry. Okay.
Thank you. So I'm a product designer, and I'm here because I knew someone who was coming here. So anyway, so basically, what I wanted to ask is, when we're talking about micro industries and smaller industries, and then we talk about globalization. So there is a sort of disconnect, because every time we talk about local skills, and then we talk about making them global and having standards and labor laws and centralizing things, I feel like there is a huge possibility. I have seen that there cannot be coexistence, because either smaller enterprises will fall under the umbrella of a larger enterprise. So how do we kind of create this reason for coexistence between like larger enterprises and micro enterprises, and how do they sustain? Because otherwise they only turn into, like, they do not sustain as micro enterprises, and they're not able to.
Rajiv would be the best person to answer that, because he's taken micro to global.
You heard the word local, haven't you? Yes. From local and global. I don't see.
No, that's fine. Yes, working. It's working.
Hello. Okay. So I don't. I think that the question could be differently phrased. There is the handmade, the more interpersonal, and there is the mass-produced and the electronic medium. There are two different approaches. And how do the two coexist? because invariably the handmaid is being overtaken by the machine. My constant dialogue with my colleagues has been to stay one step ahead, to do something that the machines still can't do. The machines will end up doing even that. At which point we expect a very indifferent government now, before, and forever. It's always been there, not doing anything about it. So you really, it's like a race. You have to stay ahead. And in this, the plus is that what you, the heart part, in artificial intelligence is going to come. It won't be an artificial heart for some time. I don't mean the one that pacemaker. I believe that the spirit, the connection between the hand-eye spirit, the stories that you get which are to do with human development have an enormous respect all over the world. And the market for that is growing. So you have to really focus on the edge that this supreme instrument can provide, and this wonderful interface which comes from, person-to-person communication. That space must not shrink. And the creativity of it will depend upon how designers such as yourself are able to give your life to it, not just one-off. I mean, I've failed mostly in everything I've done, but it's been 45 years. One has to say, there is nothing else for me. I'm not looking for light at the other end of the tunnel. This is the way I will be. So more and more people are required to work, to handhold, to be able to show the way ahead. Otherwise, it's lost. I never want to say that. Nothing is lost.
It's not all lost, and we are regrettably quite late in this session, but I hope you enjoyed it. And now it's time. As I said, time is of essence. In another 5 years, we'll be looking at 15 million jobs per year for another 15 million at the growth rate of 7 to 8%. Just keep that in mind. And it's not happening easily, and it's only with people, young people like her, who don't worry about mass production. Niche marketing always gets you more money, always, everywhere. Look at the bags market. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ashokji. Thank you very much, Lakeisha.
Before you all leave from here, we'd like to felicitate all of you. I request my colleagues, Mr. Sethi, Dr. Virmani, Shyam Sundarji, Mr. Chandra, and Mr. Pachauri. I'd also like to request Dr. Arun Kumar to please give the vote of thanks. You all can be please seated.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm holding up your lunch, but this is going to be very, very brief. Your Royal Highness, Princess Cristina of Spain, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The Jobs We Want event today is the launch of the Work4Progress program in India, which I'd like to suggest is very much in sync with the Inclusive Economic Development program of the Government of India. It is clearly an endeavor to establish direct links between the macroeconomic and the microeconomic determinants of the Indian economy. I'd like to thank Marta Solsona of the Lakeisha Banking Foundation, who set the tone for the program, laying emphasis on innovative solutions for micro entrepreneurs. And I think that rich.
We'll be reassembling for the breakout sessions at 2 o'clock. And also for the entrepreneurs who are here from UP, Bihar and Bundelkhand, they've set up a marketplace on the ground floor in the Viceroy Hall. So we'd encourage you all to explore the marketplace there. Thank you.